Chapter 1. Introduction. The Belief Bubble. I used to believe that life was simple. You find someone you love, someone you trust, and you build a life together. That was my truth. Jessica was my everything. The woman I thought I'd grow old with. The one I believed in without a shadow of doubt. Every morning, I'd wake up grateful. We had 10 years together. 10 years of what I thought was a rock-solid marriage. I trusted her with my heart, my soul, with everything that I was. We had our moments, sure, but who doesn't? In my mind, she was my constant in an unpredictable world. But even with all that love, that trust, there was this small voice, buried deep, that whispered fears I didn't want to face. What if everything I believed in, everything I held on to, was just an illusion? I'd push those thoughts away, convincing myself that Jessica would never betray me. I mean, we had something special, right? Something unbreakable. Or so I thought. But now, looking back, I can see that the signs were always there, hidden in plain sight. I just didn't want to see them. I didn't want to believe that the woman I loved more than anything could ever hurt me like that. And that's where I was wrong. So very wrong. Chapter 2. Discovery of Betrayal. The world shatters. It was a day like any other, or so I thought. I was coming home from work, looking forward to a quiet evening with Jessica, just like always. But that day, everything changed. My neighbor, a man I barely knew, stopped me on the way in. He looked uncomfortable, hesitant, but there was something in his eyes, a mix of pity and dread. He said he had something to tell me, something he thought I needed to know. My heart started racing, and I felt a chill run down my spine. Why was he looking at me like that? I didn't want to hear what he had to say, but at the same time, I had to know. He told me that Jessica was seen at a strip club. My Jessica. The woman I had loved and trusted for a decade. At first, I laughed it off, trying to brush it aside as some ridiculous rumor. But he didn't laugh. He just looked at me with those same sad eyes and said, "Ethan, I'm so sorry, but it's true." I remember standing there, numb, unable to speak. My world started spinning. How could this be true? This had to be some kind of sick joke, a mistake. But the more he talked, the more it all started to make a twisted kind of sense. The late nights, the sudden excuses, the distance I'd felt growing between us. I had ignored it all, convincing myself that everything was fine. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. I had to see it for myself. I couldn't just take his word for it. So, I went there. I went to that godforsaken place, my heart pounding in my chest, praying that it wasn't true. But there she was, on that stage, living a life I never knew about. A life that had nothing to do with the woman I thought I knew. The woman I thought I loved. I felt my heart shatter into a million pieces. The betrayal, the lies, the humiliation, it was all too much. I wanted to scream, to confront her right then and there, but I couldn't move. I just stood there, frozen, watching my entire life crumble before my eyes. How could she do this to me? How could she live this lie, day in and day out, and look me in the eye as if nothing was wrong? Every promise, every word, every moment we shared, it was all a lie. The woman I thought was my soulmate, the one I trusted more than anyone, was nothing more than a stranger. A stranger who had ripped my heart out and stomped on it without a second thought. I left that place, but I left a different man. The man who walked in was gone, shattered by the truth I had been too blind to see. And all I could think was, why? Why would she do this to me? To us? To everything we had built together? But there were no answers. only the cold, hard reality that everything I believed in, everything I thought I knew, was gone. In that moment, my world didn't just crack, it completely shattered. Chapter 3: Impact on Self-Esteem and Public Perception. The Fear of Judgment. I thought the worst was behind me after discovering Jessica's betrayal, but that was just the beginning. What came next was something I never saw coming: the crushing weight of humiliation, the relentless fear of judgment. I couldn't escape the thoughts that kept hammering away at my mind. What would people think? The neighbors, the people at work, our so-called friends? How long would it be before they found out? Before the whispers started, before the pitying looks and the quiet conversations behind my back? Everywhere I went, I felt their eyes on me, even if they weren't. I became hyper-aware of everything, every glance, every word, every small gesture. I could almost hear them saying, "There goes Ethan, the man whose wife—" No, I couldn't even finish that thought. The shame was too overwhelming. It wasn't just about what they might think of Jessica, it was about what they'd think of me. What kind of man was I if I couldn't even keep my own wife? If I didn't see what was happening right under my nose? I felt like a fool, like a joke. How could I face anyone knowing that they might see me as a failure, as a man who wasn't enough? And it wasn't just strangers, it was the people I was closest to. My family, my friends. How could I look them in the eye, knowing that they might be thinking, "Poor Ethan, he couldn't satisfy his wife. He couldn't keep her happy." The thought of their pity, their judgment, it was unbearable. My self-esteem, the confidence I once had, it all crumbled. I felt like I was shrinking, becoming smaller and smaller under the weight of my own insecurities. Every day, I'd look in the mirror and see someone I didn't recognize, someone broken, defeated, a shadow of the man I used to be. The worst part was that it wasn't just in my head. The whispers started, just like I feared they would. People were talking, speculating. The rumors spread like wildfire, and I knew that every time someone looked at me, they saw not just Ethan, but Ethan, the man who was betrayed, the man whose wife turned out to be that. I started avoiding people, avoiding places. I didn't want to see the looks of pity, the half-hearted words of sympathy. I didn't want to be the topic of their conversations, the subject of their gossip. I felt trapped in my own skin, suffocating under the weight of their judgment and my own self-loathing. I never imagined that something like this could happen to me, that I could fall so far, so fast. But here I was, living a nightmare, consumed by shame, by the fear of what others would think. And the worst part? I couldn't see a way out. The man I once was, he was gone. All that was left was this hollow shell, struggling to hold on to whatever dignity I had left. Chapter 4: Confrontation with the wife. The explosive argument. I couldn't hold it in any longer. The betrayal, the lies, the humiliation, it was all boiling inside me, ready to explode. I needed answers. I needed to understand how the woman I loved, the woman I trusted more than anything, could do this to me. So I waited for her to come home. I didn't know what I was going to say, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. When she walked through the door, smiling like nothing had changed, I felt a rage I had never known before. How could she act so normal, so unaffected, while I was drowning in pain? I couldn't stand it. "Jessica," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, but I could hear the tremor in it, the anger barely contained. She turned to me, and for a moment, I saw something in her eyes. Was it guilt? Fear? I don't know, but it was gone in a flash. replaced by that same calm, composed look she always had. I couldn't take it anymore. "How long?" I demanded, my voice breaking. "How long have you been lying to me? How long have you been living this double life?" She just stared at me, and for a second, I thought she wasn't going to answer. But then she spoke, and her words cut deeper than I ever thought possible. "Ethan, I didn't mean for you to find out like this." "Like this?" I shouted. "You didn't mean for me to find out at all, did you? You were just going to keep lying to me, day after day, night after night, while you—" I couldn't even finish the sentence. The words choked in my throat. She tried to explain, to justify, but I couldn't hear her. All I could hear was the sound of my heart shattering all over again. "How could you?" I whispered, my voice hoarse with emotion. "How could you do this to us, to everything we've built? Was it all just a lie, Jessica? Was our entire marriage a lie?" Her face hardened then, and what she said next sent me over the edge. "Ethan, you don't understand. It wasn't supposed to be like this. It's complicated." "Complicated?" I exploded. "What's complicated about betrayal? About deceit? About breaking the vows you made to me? You didn't even give me a chance to understand because you didn't care enough to be honest with me." We were shouting now, both of us, the calm veneer completely shattered. She accused me of not understanding her, of not being there for her in ways she needed. And that's when it hit me. She was trying to shift the blame, trying to make it seem like this was somehow my fault. "Don't you dare," I said, my voice cold as ice. She didn't answer, and in that silence, I felt something inside me break completely. The last shred of hope, the last thread of love I was holding on to, it all snapped. I realized then that I didn't know this woman at all. The woman I thought I loved was gone, replaced by someone who could look me in the eye and lie without a second thought. "We're done," I said finally, my voice empty. "I can't do this anymore. I can't be with someone who can lie to me, betray me like this, and then try to justify it. You made your choice, Jessica, and now I'm making mine." Chapter 5. Emotional Turmoil and Heartbreak. The Aftermath. After that argument, I left the house. But the truth is, I wasn't really sure where I was going. All I knew was that I couldn't stay there, couldn't be near her. I felt like I was suffocating, like the walls were closing in on me. My whole world had just come crashing down, and I didn't know how to pick up the pieces. I wandered for hours, lost in my own thoughts, replaying everything in my mind. The lies, the betrayal, the way she looked at me with those cold, indifferent eyes. It was like I was seeing everything in a twisted, distorted light, and nothing made sense anymore. The pain was unbearable. It wasn't just in my heart. It was everywhere. My chest ached, my stomach was in knots, and I felt this heavy weight pressing down on me, like I was being crushed under the enormity of it all. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't escape the agony that was tearing me apart. I tried to distract myself, to push the thoughts away, but they kept coming back, relentless and cruel. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, heard her voice, remembered the things she said, the excuses she made. It was like I was trapped in a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. Sleep was impossible. I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, the minutes dragging by like hours. My mind wouldn't shut off. It just kept spinning, going over every detail, every moment we'd shared, now tainted by the knowledge of what she'd done. I kept asking myself, how did we get here? How did everything go so wrong? I couldn't escape the memories. They were everywhere, in our house, in the places we used to go, in the little things that used to make me smile. Now all they did was hurt. Everything I had loved, everything I had cherished, was now a source of pain. I kept thinking about the future we'd planned, the dreams we'd shared. We were supposed to grow old together, to face life's challenges as a team. But now, all those dreams were dead, shattered by her betrayal. The life I thought I was going to have, the happiness I thought was within reach, it was gone, just like that. And what hurt the most was the realization that the woman I loved, the woman I had built my life around, wasn't the person I thought she was. She was a stranger, someone who had been living a lie, someone who had betrayed everything we stood for. And that betrayal, it changed me. It broke something inside me that I'm not sure will ever be fixed. I was angry, yes, but more than that, I was devastated. I felt like I had lost not just her, but a part of myself. The part that believed in love, that believed in forever. How do you come back from that? How do you move on when everything you believed in has been ripped away from you? I didn't have the answers. All I had was the pain, the heartbreak, and the overwhelming sense of loss. I was drowning in it, and there was no one to pull me out, no way to make it stop. I was alone, completely and utterly alone, with nothing but my broken heart and the pieces of a life that would never be the same. Chapter 6. The temptation of a new relationship, a flicker of hope. In the midst of all that pain, all that heartbreak, there was a moment, a brief, fleeting moment where I thought maybe, just maybe, there was a way out of this darkness. That's when Elizabeth came into the picture. Elizabeth, Jessica's friend, someone who had been there, quietly, in the background, while my world was falling apart. She reached out to me, just to check in, she said. She knew something was wrong. She could see the change in me, the weight I was carrying. I guess she could see the shattered man I had become. And maybe, on some level, she understood. Maybe she knew better than anyone how deep my wounds went. At first, it was just a few texts, a phone call here and there. She was kind, understanding, offering a listening ear when I felt like I was screaming into the void. And slowly, I found myself leaning on her more and more, clinging to the warmth of her words, the softness in her voice. It was like she was this tiny flicker of light in the endless darkness I was drowning in. When we met, it was like a breath of fresh air. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't consumed by anger, by grief. With Elizabeth, I could almost forget, if only for a little while. She looked at me with such compassion, such understanding, and it was comforting. I found myself drawn to her in a way I hadn't expected, a way that scared me. It was like she was everything I thought I needed in that moment. Someone who could see the broken pieces of me and didn't flinch, didn't turn away. But as that flicker of hope grew brighter, so did the weight of guilt. How could I even think about starting something new when the ashes of my marriage were still smoldering around me? Elizabeth was Jessica's friend. She had been there through all of it, had watched as everything fell apart. How could I even entertain the idea of being with her without betraying everything I had believed in, everything I had once held sacred? Elizabeth deserved better than that. She deserved more than to be a bandage for my broken heart, more than to be a second choice, a replacement for what I'd lost. And as much as I wanted to reach out, to take hold of that flicker of hope she offered, I knew it wasn't fair. Not to her, not to me. So I stepped back. I told her I needed time, that I couldn't give her what she deserved. And as I watched the light in her eyes dim, as I saw the hurt she tried so hard to hide, it felt like another piece of me broke off, drifting into the void. I could have taken that chance, could have let her in, but the truth was, I was too scared. Too scared of getting hurt again, too scared of hurting her. And so, that flicker of hope faded, leaving me alone once more, trapped in the darkness of my own making. The temptation was there, the possibility of something new, something healing. But I wasn't ready. And maybe, just maybe, I never would be. Chapter 7. Decision Point. Stay or leave. I knew the time had come. I couldn't avoid it anymore. I had to decide. Could I stay with Jessica, try to salvage what was left, or was it time to walk away? The memories, the vows we made, they all pulled at me, whispering that maybe, just maybe, there was something worth saving. But then I remembered the lies, the betrayal that cut so deep, it left me hollow inside. I tried to imagine a future with her, but all I saw were the cracks, the wounds that wouldn't heal. Could I ever trust her again? Could I look at her without seeing the woman who shattered everything we'd built? The doubt, the fear, it was all too much. I couldn't live like that, constantly questioning, never truly at peace. I talked to everyone I could, hoping someone would have the answer. Some said to forgive, others said to leave. But in the end, it wasn't their choice. It was mine. And the truth? I didn't know if I had it in me to forgive, to let go of the anger and pain. Staying out of fear, out of obligation, it would destroy whatever was left of me. So I made the hardest decision of my life. I chose to leave. I chose to let go of the life we'd built, the dreams we once shared, and start over. It wasn't just about leaving her. It was about choosing myself, my dignity, my chance to heal. I knew that staying would only prolong the pain, that it would turn me into someone bitter, someone I didn't want to be. As I walked out that door for the last time, I felt the weight of it all, the love, the loss, the betrayal. But I also felt something else, a glimmer of hope. Hope that I could rebuild, that I could find peace, even if it meant facing the unknown alone. Leaving wasn't the end I wanted, but it was the end I needed. And for the first time in a long time, I chose to put myself first. Chapter 8. Seeking support, reaching out. After making the decision to leave, I thought the hardest part was over. But the truth is, walking away was just the beginning. I was lost, adrift in a sea of emotions I couldn't navigate on my own. I needed support, someone to help me make sense of the chaos in my head. So I reached out to friends, to family, hoping they could help me find some kind of clarity, some kind of peace. I called my best friend first, someone I'd known since childhood. I expected comfort, understanding, maybe even some advice. But instead, I was met with awkward silence, a hesitation that felt like a punch to the gut. He didn't know what to say, how to react. I could hear the discomfort in his voice, the way he stumbled over his words, trying to find the right thing to say, but failing miserably. It was like he was afraid to say the wrong thing, to make it worse, but in doing so, he made me feel even more alone. So I turned to my family, hoping they'd be the anchor I needed. I laid it all out, what Jessica had done, how I felt, how I didn't know where to go from here. They were supportive, of course, in that practical, matter-of-fact way that families sometimes are. They told me I'd made the right decision, that I was strong for leaving, that I'd get through this. But their words felt hollow, like they were just saying what they thought I wanted to hear, not what I needed to hear. I could see the pity in their eyes, the way they looked at me like I was something fragile, something broken. And maybe I was, but that wasn't what I needed from them. I needed someone to understand the depth of my pain, the confusion, the anger, the loss. But instead, I felt like they were trying to fix me, to move me past it as quickly as possible, when all I wanted was to be heard, to be understood. Even when I talked to others, the reactions were the same, well-meaning, but distant. It was like they couldn't really grasp what I was going through, couldn't comprehend the magnitude of what I had lost. And the more I reached out, the more isolated I felt. I was surrounded by people, but I might as well have been on an island, cut off from everyone else. I started to wonder if anyone could truly understand what I was feeling, if there was anyone out there who could really relate to the pain I was in. And that's when I realized I was on my own in this. No one could carry this burden for me. No one could take away the hurt. It was mine to bear, and mine alone. It was a harsh realization, one that cut deep. I had always believed that in times of crisis, you could lean on those closest to you, that they'd be there to lift you up when you fell. But now, I saw that some things were too heavy, too dark for others to carry. This was one of those things, so I stopped reaching out. I stopped trying to find comfort in others, stopped looking for answers outside of myself. I knew that if I was going to get through this, it would have to come from within. The support I needed wasn't something anyone else could give me. It was something I had to find in myself. And as lonely as that realization was, it was also the first step toward healing, toward reclaiming my life from the wreckage that Jessica had left behind. Chapter 9. Descent into Solitude and Asceticism. The Final Transformation. I thought I could handle the pain. I thought that by leaving, by reaching out, I'd find some way to stitch myself back together. But the more I tried, the more I realized that nothing and no one could fill the void inside me. The betrayal, the lies, the loss of everything I'd believed in, it consumed me, hollowed me out, until there was nothing left but the raw, aching emptiness. The world I once knew, the life I once cherished, it all felt like a distant memory, something that belonged to someone else, someone who no longer existed. I was a ghost, wandering through the ruins of my life, haunted by the echoes of what used to be. Every corner of that house, every familiar face, every attempt at normalcy, it all became unbearable. A constant reminder of the man I could never be again. I couldn't escape it. No matter where I turned, no matter what I did, the pain followed me. A relentless shadow that clung to me, dragging me deeper into the darkness. I tried to fight it, tried to hold on to some semblance of the man I once was, but it was no use. I was drowning in it, sinking further and further until I couldn't see a way out. So I made a choice to leave it all behind. Not just the memories, not just the pain, but everything. The house, the people, the world that had become a prison for me. I walked away from it all. I packed what little I needed and left, disappearing into the mountains, into the wilderness, where the noise of the world couldn't reach me. It was drastic, I know, but I needed it. I needed the silence, the solitude. I needed to strip away every last vestige of the life that had betrayed me, to purge myself of the man I had been, the man who had trusted, who had loved so deeply, only to be destroyed by it. I needed to become something else, something new, something untouched by the world's cruelty. The mountains became my refuge, my sanctuary. The biting cold, the rugged terrain, the isolation. It was harsh, unforgiving, but it was exactly what I needed. Out there, in the raw, untamed wild, there was no room for the past, no room for regret or sorrow. It was just me, the elements, and the simple act of survival. At first, it was terrifying. The loneliness, the silence, it was overwhelming, suffocating even. But slowly, I began to find solace in it. The quiet became a balm for my soul. The solitude, a space where I could finally breathe without the weight of my past crushing me. I let go of everything. My anger, my grief, my desire for answers, for closure. I let it all drift away, like the smoke from a dying fire. The man who entered those mountains, broken and lost, he didn't survive. He couldn't. But in his place, something new was born. Something stronger. Something free from the chains of the past. I became a part of the earth, of the sky, of the cold, clear air that filled my lungs. I became something I never imagined I could be. Free. The world I left behind, the people, the pain. It all became a distant memory, a life that belonged to someone else. I had no need for it anymore, no desire to return. The mountains were my home now, the solitude my companion, and in that I found a peace that no one, not even Jessica, could ever take from me. I had been shattered, yes, but in the solitude of the mountains, I found a way to piece myself back together, not as the man I was, but as someone new, someone whole. And for the first time, in what felt like an eternity, I was truly, completely at peace. Chapter 10. Conclusion. Life in Solitude and Reflection. It's been months, maybe even years. Out here, time doesn't pass the way it used to. The days blend together in a quiet rhythm, marked only by the sun's rise and fall, the changing of the seasons. Life has become simple, almost elemental. The mountains have a way of stripping away everything that doesn't matter, leaving only what's essential, what's true. In the stillness of this place, I've found something I never thought I would again. Myself. The man I was before. The man who loved, who trusted, who believed so deeply in forever. He's gone. But what's left is something I've come to respect, even cherish. It's a version of myself that understands the world a little better, that knows its cruelties and its blessings, and accepts them both without fear. I think a lot about the life I left behind, but not in the way I used to. The pain, the betrayal, it's faded, like a scar that's healed over time. It's still there, a part of me, but it no longer defines me. Instead, it's a reminder of how far I've come, of what I've survived. And in a strange way, I'm grateful for it. Without that pain, without that breaking, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have found this peace. The solitude I once feared has become a friend, a companion that I now welcome. It's in the silence that I hear the truth most clearly. That life, with all its twists and turns, its unexpected heartbreaks, is still worth living. Not because it's easy or because it always makes sense, but because it's real, because it's mine. I've come to understand that everything I went through, every tear, every sleepless night, was part of a journey that led me here, to this place of quiet reflection. I didn't choose this path, not at first. It was thrust upon me, and there were times I didn't think I could survive it. But now, standing here, breathing in the cold, clean air of the mountains, I see that this was exactly where I needed to be. I think about Jessica sometimes. I wonder where she is, what she's doing, if she's found her own kind of peace. I don't hate her anymore. In fact, I've let go of all those old feelings, anger, bitterness, regret. As for me, I've found something far more valuable than I ever expected: contentment. It's not the life I once imagined, not by a long shot, but it's mine. And in that, there's a profound sense of satisfaction, of fulfillment, that I don't think I could have found any other way. This solitude, this life in the mountains, It's not an escape. It's not about running away from the world or hiding from the past. It's about embracing what is, about living fully in the present, about finding peace in the simple act of being alive. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'll stay here forever, or if one day I'll feel the pull to return to the world I left behind. But I do know that whatever happens, life isn't about the plans we make or the dreams we hold on to. It's about how we adapt, how we grow, how we find meaning in the unexpected. And out here, in the quiet majesty of these mountains, I've found my meaning. I've found my peace. And that more than anything is what I was searching for all along.